I wanted to introduce this course. This is Communication 101 for International Programs. It's a course that I have created and working with other people have put together a series of videos for you and we'll be working in concert with your instructor to produce this course at whichever international campus you happen to be. I want to welcome you to the course and I hope that you'll enjoy it. It is a communication class, and for some of you, you may have been dreading communication classes, the basic Commo 101 class, because fear of public speaking is probably the greatest adult fear that there is. But I've tried to design this class in a way to accentuate the cross-cultural nature of communication. Not that we're not doing some oral presentations, but to give you a sense of calmness and a different outlook on communication other than the course that would be taught in Searcy at our home campus. Because as I was discussing this with Dr. Larry Long and Dr. Jeff Hopper, I didn't see any reason for us to try to rubber stamp the CommO 101 course in Searcy and apply it to all the international campuses. Rather, what I've tried to do is to create a course reflective of the cross-cultural nature of your experience now in the international programs. I hope you'll enjoy it. I want you to. You'll find it different, and I also think you'll find it very interesting. You're going to find it much, much more interesting if you can take the things that we will be discussing in class and take those out into the marketplace, into the cafes, into the countrysides of Greece and Italy and France and Chile and Australia and all of the places where our campuses happen to reside or where you happen to be traveling. That's what I hope for you, and that's what I want for you. That's the image and the vision that I have for you in this class. Now, what I wanted to do was to take a moment as an introduction to explain the activities that you will be doing in this class and just to give you an overview of it. What will happen, first of all, is that hopefully before you even come to your international campus, you will have enrolled in the facial affect scoring tests of Paul Ekman. You will have paid for this, and it's a test that you do online. It's actually the only really valid nonverbal communication tutorial that exists that I know of. Paul Ekman is the world-renowned expert on facial expression. I'll talk about him a little later, and you will already know about him by the time I get to that lecture, because hopefully you will already have gone online and done his tutorial. And his tutorial is helping you to learn to recognize one of 6 or 7 universal facial expressions. And like I said, this is what he is known for, the discovery of this set of facial expressions. And online, you will be taught how to recognize them, even when they're made very, very quickly. Because many, if not most, of the very basic facial expressions are made in what are called micro-momentary facial expressions. That is, you make the face very quickly when you feel the emotion, and then suddenly you may try to cover it up. This training program is going to help you learn how to identify those facial expressions. And as I indicated, they're universal, so you'll be able to see them and recognize them wherever you happen to be in the world. And hopefully that knowledge will carry with you. You will carry that knowledge with you when you return to the United States. So that's the first part of the first arm of this communication course for you. The second dimension of the course I want to talk about is a book that you will have to read. It's called See What I Am Saying by Lawrence Rosenblum. You will understand the role that this book plays in the course as you listen to the first lecture that I give you. But I'll at least say that you need to get into this book and read it as soon as possible. It's Lawrence Rosenblum, See What I'm Saying. Hopefully, your instructor has been in touch with you before you go to your foreign program so that you can have purchased it or at least ready to read it or have read it before you arrive at your foreign campus. The reason I want you to read this book is because my theory is that sensory impressions and the interpretation of sensory information is sort of the bottom infrastructure for human communication. And so that's why I want it to be done early. That's why I want it to be one of the first things that you do upon your arrival in a foreign destination. And more than that, what you will do is I will want each class, based on what the instructor deems appropriate, to be divided into an equal number of groups. And I want you to discuss portions of this book aloud in class with oral presentations. That is, doing informative speeches. So each group will take, let's say, 1 chapter or 2 chapters in the book, and there will be a time when in class you will do a formal presentation, an oral communication, an oral presentation on your chapter. And each person in the group, let's say if there were a group of 5 looking at chapter 1, then each of you in that group of 5 will do a presentation on some part of that chapter. And you will be graded by your instructor for that presentation. So you've got the Paul Ekman work that you do before you leave. Then immediately upon arrival on your campus, you will do an oral presentation over Lawrence Rosenblum's book. There is a third assignment that you will have in this class, and this I call the exemplar assignment. At some point in time when your instructor deems it appropriate, each of you in those groups into which you've been subdivided will choose an exemplar of your culture or a really good example of your culture, and you will do a series of oral presentations over that particular exemplar. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are a group of 5 people and you get together and you're in Italy or you're in Greece, and you decide that the exemplar that you want to discuss in class and over which you want to do oral presentations in class is olive trees. So what particular way might you subdivide the topic of olive trees so that each of you, 5 people, might have a particular presentation with regard to olive trees? Well, in my notes, I've subdivided as follows. The first person could talk about the origin and history of olive trees. The second person talk about the usages of olive oil. The third person can talk about the process of taking the oil out of the olives. The fourth person could talk about the significance of the olive oil and or the olive tree in the Greek or Italian cuisine or culture. And then the fifth person would talk about the overall significance of the tree in that particular culture. Now, what you can do, in other words, is you take an exemplar, and in this case I've given you the example of olive trees, and you decide you're going to discuss it, you do research on it, and you have a class period in which you present your series of exemplar speeches over the olive tree, or over coffee, or espresso, or maybe it's the French cafe, maybe it's French architecture, maybe it's the color red or ochre in Australia, which happens to be very significant with the Aborigines. Or maybe it's the color red itself in Chile, which is one of the origins of the color red. You see, there are a lot of things that you can choose as cultural exemplars. Each group will take one of those and will do a series of speeches presenting them in class and be graded over those speeches at some point in time as your instructor deems it important. So you've got Paul Ekman before you get there. As soon as you get there, you do Lawrence Rosenblum, and you do those presentations in class. And at some point in time later on in this semester, when your instructor deems it appropriate, you do your exemplar presentations. Now, there are 2 other things that I want to call to your attention that are significant portions of the course. The next one has to do with your keeping a notebook or a moleskin of observations of verbal and especially nonverbal communication within the cultures in which you are residing. So when you go out to the cafes, when you go to eat, when you go on field trips, when you just go down to Florence or into Athens or to Paris or to Santiago or wherever you happen to go, you will take that notebook with you and you will record observations about verbal, nonverbal communication, especially in light of the things that I will present in the class later on as to what human needs are being met by that communication and which psychological forms, and I'll discuss this later, which of the 4 psychological forms are being met by those types of communications. So you will keep a notebook. You can do it in the form of a moleskin. You can do it in any form you want. But that notebook will be taken up by your instructor at the end or toward the end of the semester, and you will be given a grade on those observations. I would also recommend that you take that with you when you do your free travel, if you happen to be in one of the programs that does free travel, so that you can make cross-cultural observations perhaps about, let's say, the Czech Republic versus Italy, or England versus Italy, or Chile versus other countries, Argentina, for example, where you happen to go. So that's the next assignment, so to speak, is an ongoing notebook that you will keep observing verbal and nonverbal communication within the cultures in which you're residing. And a final thing that will be occurring in your classes is there will be a series of guest speakers that will be brought in. The number and the individuals are yet to be determined, but there will be a series of guest speakers that will come in that will talk to you about differences in cultures between the United States and whatever culture in which you're residing in terms of ritual or forms of ritual communication. And this could be greetings, this could be funeral practices, this could be rites of passage, this could be how people enter and leave a room or an environment, how people converse, how people turn take during conversations, any number of types of rituals, meals, how meals are conducted. What is an Italian meal like? What is a Greek meal like? What is a French meal like? A Chilean meal? Any of those sorts of things, people will be coming into your classroom to discuss. And again, the number and who exactly will do the discussions is yet to be determined. So this will give you an overview of the types of assignments that will be going on in the classroom. So you've got the facial affect scoring technique of Paul Ekman. You've got the book by Rosenblum. You have 2 oral presentations in class, the exemplar speech and the Rosenblum. Then in addition, you have a notebook that you will be keeping detailing nonverbal and verbal observations of your culture, and then you will be listening to some guest speakers. In addition to that, of course, you will be listening to the DVDs that I have made, and your instructor will be preparing a number of exams for you to take over the course as a whole. Now, the number of exams, the types of the exams, and the point value of all of these activities is to be determined by your instructor. I don't tell them what to do. I just provide the material, tell them what I want to be done in terms of the activities, and then the rest of it is up to the director and the instructor of your class. So in terms of sheer point value and weighting of these activities and the number of tests and the types of tests that you will take, that will be determined by your instructor there in whichever campus you happen to be. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I wish you well in the class. Hope that you will really enjoy it, and also will appreciate any feedback that you can give me in the future about what I can do to improve this class. Thank you very much. Enjoy your stay in a foreign country. Learn from it. Learn not to be a reactor, but an analyzer of interpersonal and cross-cultural communication.